a politician honoured like no other, with ceremony and a statue at Westminster in 2007. It wasn't always like this, as he recalled at the time.
When Oliver Tambo and I visited Westminster Abbey and Parliament Square in 1962,
some hope. Nelson Mandela, who met Labour and Liberal leaders back then, but not the Conservative Prime Minister Harold Macmillan, was a wanted man in South Africa. 2 years later, he would be jailed for sabotage. And he was still in prison when Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister. She regarded his African National Congress as a terrorist organisation. She wanted an end to apartheid, but opposed comprehensive economic sanctions, arguing they'd hurt black South Africans.
You don't want to always to have the stick to South Africa. I think she's a bit fed up of that. When she does things that we want her to do, I think we've got to encourage her.
This was the era of the Cold War. The West feared the communist influence on the ANC, and even some opponents of apartheid and of Mrs. Thatcher note that global concerns were different back then.
The ANC had the support of the communist world because the West wouldn't support it, with the exception of the Scandinavian countries like Sweden. So many countries in the West, including Britain and the United States, almost saw Nelson Mandela and the ANC as agents of communism. Palpable nonsense, but that was the way it was seen.
When Nelson Mandela's freedom finally came, the world was different and the politics shifted.
Once Nelson Mandela was released, everything changed. It all switched to trying to create a harmonious transition to a different type of South Africa, and the Conservative Party's attitudes changed. John Major was Prime Minister then, who knew a bit about Africa and was very supportive of that.
By 1996, Nelson Mandela was addressing Parliament, and politicians from all sides assembled to pay tribute. This was a star like no other, one who could inspire, move, and sprinkle political gold dust.
as I look at you here, I can see men and women who are worthy candidates to immortality.
A Tory leader battling Tony Blair met Nelson Mandela and said the Conservatives had got it wrong on the ANC and on sanctions. And the man who first came to Britain as a fugitive is now celebrated by the right and left alike as the greatest and most successful of politicians. Ross Hawkins, BBC News at Westminster.